topic that I've chosen to discuss is bite inhibition. Bite inhibition for me is probably one of the most important aspects of the things that we need to give our puppies as a skill in order to be able to handle a human world. Human beings, generally speaking, don't go around biting each other, but dogs have got a mouthful of teeth that can cause a lot of damage. And if we don't show them the correct way to use their mouths around people and other dogs, generally the consequences of a dog using its mouth in an inappropriate way are generally very severe. So really, one of the things that I really try and get across to any new dog owner and any new puppy owner is that their puppy is going to be doing a lot of mouthing, a lot of using their mouth to explore their environment, using their mouth to explore people's hands, people's legs, other dogs. And nature has kind of programmed their minds in a way that kind of encourages that in quite a big way. And it's not something that you should actively try and stop the puppy doing. In fact, for me, it's something that you should utilize to your advantage. A puppy that's mouthing a lot, a puppy that's using its mouth to explore a lot is actually far better than a puppy that isn't, because we have so many opportunities to be able to teach that puppy what's right and what's wrong. Nature has kind of ironically given them a mouthful of little needles, but no pressure to be able to do any damage. So it's kind of set them up for success, in the sense that those little needles are great at giving whatever they're mouthing a good indicator of what's an acceptable pressure and what's not. So really, for me, you need to spend a lot of time allowing your puppy to mouth things, to be around other dogs, to experience what happens when I do use too much pressure. And you'll notice in class when we do free play, a puppy nipping another puppy and getting told off, or getting the other puppy to react in a way that he wasn't really looking for, is a good learning experience. I know we all get very caught up and sad for our little puppy or someone else's puppy, and we don't want anyone's puppies to get hurt, but because all the dogs are under 4 months of age, the bite pressures that we're talking about are so small. It's more a little pinch than anything else, and when that dog's much older, they're going to be far more able to inhibit their bite when they are playing with other dogs, when they are playing with other people. The best way to teach bite inhibition is just basically, as a family, everyone in the family needs to come to an agreement as to what is acceptable, what's unacceptable. That's very important, because what goes for one needs to go for all. If dad's roughhousing with puppy and allowing quite strong bite pressures, that needs to be the same for the kids, because puppy's going to find it quite difficult to differentiate between the two. So try and make a fair set of rules for all. And to be very honest with you, roughhousing I'm not a big fan of, because it just generally isn't a good way to play with your dog. If you do want to do rougher type games, I'm a big fan of tug of war, very appropriate. Puppy gets to bite and chomp onto something that isn't someone's arm or hand, without causing any damage, and sort of the old school belief that if the puppy wins the battle of tug of war, they're the dominant animal in the home's a little bit disproven. And I play tug of war with all 3 of my dogs, and to be honest with you, whether I win or lose, I don't think any of us care who comes out as the dominant animal. We all have a huge amount of fun doing it. So when your puppy is mouthing and when your puppy is exploring your hands, so I'm not averse to letting my dogs mouth my hands. If your set of rules is that puppy shouldn't put any pressure or put your hands in their mouth at all, very simply stand up and walk away. There's a lot of textbook literature that will say give a little yelp and move away. I've raised a couple of terriers in the last 4 or 5 years that have made me question the little yelp a little bit. My Boston Terrier heard me yelp and thought, great, 5'10" chew toy, with an extra loud squeaker. So I've removed the noise a little bit. If you look at how a lot of adult dogs move away from puppies that are being a little bit too much, there's not necessarily a huge amount of vocalization. They might growl, they might snarl, but I'm not going to advise anyone to growl or snarl at their puppy. Rather, just stand up and walk away, get out the room as quickly as you can, wait for 5 to 10 seconds and re-enter the room. Repeat as necessary. If you're finding that puppy's trying to grab hold of trouser legs or any loose bit of material as you're leaving the room, go to your builder's warehouse and get $100 pair of Wellington boots, just as an interim solution, so that as you're walking, a puppy doesn't actually have anything to grab hold of. Remember, anything we add to the puppy's environment whilst they're performing a behavior, whether we think it's a good thing or a bad thing, might inadvertently reinforce the behavior. So for your terrier type pups in particular, but this goes for any puppy who's got a little bit of a go-get-it attitude. If you do make a noise, or as you're leaving the room you say get lost, go away, pup might think, no, actually I'm not getting lost, and actually no, I'm not going away. And this is a great amount of fun, because all of a sudden the human becomes a whole lot more animate. So just basically stand up, walk out the room, and return 5-10 seconds later. If puppy's still doing it, leave again and come back in. Unfortunately, there's no other way to speed up the process, and you'll find pup actually picks it up pretty quickly that, okay, fine, that was too much. Why? Because we're using a form of a horrible word to use, but it is the correct terminology, punishment. We're punishing the behavior because we're trying to decrease the probability that puppy's going to bite in that way again in future. And how we're doing that, we're removing their expected reward, and the reward is that they get to play with us. For puppies that maybe are a little bit larger, or who are displaying more biting on as you're leaving the room, try and displace the behavior onto something appropriate. So what you can do is have a rope toy or something lying around that you would maybe direct the puppy's attention onto before you can get out the room. If you've got a 20-meter walk to get out the room, you're going to need to do something to distract puppies. So a rope toy or even a tennis ball, just to create a little bit of space, and without saying or doing too much, just leaving the room and letting pup know that play's ended. As a good rule of thumb, I like to end play and start play fairly often with a new puppy anyway, just to teach them a little bit of control. If you watch puppies playing with other puppies, it's all action stop, and you can do that with your puppy at home as well, and it helps to give them a good understanding of where certain boundaries are going to be. And that's basically what bite inhibition is. We need to teach a puppy where the boundaries are. When your puppy's playing with other dogs, what time?
7 minutes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so 7 minutes in, let me just wrap it up. But for me, one of the most important things is, first of all, dogs need to understand how to bite and be around, how not to bite human beings. But dogs are going to use their mouths, and some of the dogs with the best bite inhibition I've seen are very mouthy dogs. They like to use their mouths, but they use them in appropriate ways. Dogs don't have hands, and they kind of feel the world with their mouths. So for me personally, your dog should be allowed to use their mouths, they just need to use it appropriately.